Well, I'm back for a video. What are we doing today? Well, my apprentice's favorite little mini game here. It's a battery hungry beast. It keeps going through batteries and I'm kind of sick of it. And on top of that, she's loved it to death with the control stick here is desperately in need of some attention. So, currently it runs on 3 AA batteries, which get her around about a day's worth of playing, sometimes 2 if she's careful. So I have an idea. There's loads and loads and loads of room in the back of this thing. So if I open this up, we can see there's loads of room in the back. So I'm thinking there's plenty of room to get in and stick some batteries in. So I have a couple of little power bank ideas here that might actually make it rechargeable. Now, given that 3 AA batteries are meant to about 4.5 volts, I'm willing to bet that this is designed to run on 5. So I have this project here. This was a donation by Tinkerman Mick, and I stuck some recycled cells in here, which are a bit shorter than 18650s. There are some other kind of cell here. They're an 18500. They're a little bit shorter. So I made some packets here. This didn't quite work out as well as I'd hoped. So I might even dismantle this and just stick a single cell in there and see how much life we get out of it from that. But yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of thinking and a bit of disassembling and see what happens. Alright, so the first thing I've tried to do without doing too much effort is to make some sort of improvised repair on this stick. Now I've dropped a threaded insert in there, heated it, dropped it through the plastic, and then put a little bit of super glue in there. What that means is when this super glue sets, I'll be able to remove this screw and create a new control stick of some kind and screw it on. But for the time being, it's going to live like that. If I get more industrious, I might actually remove the panel behind that and actually create a whole new stick from scratch. Anyway, the next bit we go to, I'm going to dismantle this. I'm going to remove this first. However, I'm thinking what I might do before I go to that trouble is I might clip this up with some clip leads and give it 5 volts directly and see if I kill it. It should be relatively voltage tolerant. Let's have a quick look in here, and it looks like there are multiple different battery contacts in here, potentially for different voltages, but they all seem to be on a common rail. So yeah, but generally in my experience most of these things will be supplied by 5 volts. And I've just spotted something here. Where's a pointer? I'll use a bit of wire here. I'm noticing a DC in 5 volts and a ground. You know what, I might just hook up to these and see what happens if I give it 5 volts that way rather than batteries in from there. And we've got a DC in 5 volts here. I think this will run just fine. I've got a 3.3 volt line as well. I think if I give this 5 volts it'll be just fine. Now, further evidence, which is hard to see without an extra light. Let's grab an extra light. Further evidence, as you can see in the top here, there's a timing crystal on the board. That's generally the case when they don't want to have a voltage dependent processor for timing. They need specific timing. So, take a little quartz crystal, keeping the CPU clock time correct so that it can run on a slightly lower voltage. And I've seen that happen in something over the back here. The Geiger counter that's built into the back of this is made by Mighty Ohm, and they're running an AT Tiny, variant of an AT Tiny. I think it's 2313. They're running that on 3 volts, but in order to get the timing correct for both the serial data and the radiation count, they used a timing crystal, a little 8 megahertz one. So I'm familiar with how that works. I think we'll just feed it 5 volts and let's see what happens. Okay, so where I'm connected to, I'm going to connect straight on the battery here. I did have a bit of an epiphany. I could just stick a diode like a 1N914 or something in series with the supply, and that should drop it down and also prevent reverse polarization. But I reckon this will work just fine. Now, we are connected to, up over here, we're connected to the 5 volt output here. So let's just swing back down here and see what happens. I'm going to move everything around. I'm going to do a quick jump cut here. Moment of truth where I really upset my apprentice. Let's just double check. Red is to red and black is to black. Before I do that, I want to just make sure that it actually is the positive terminal. That appears to be correct. Some of these Chinese intelligent people, or intelligent Chinese people rather, use red for ground. You just got to be careful. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. It hasn't blown up yet, and it's a little bit louder. Let's try bowling. See if I can get this right. It is. It's actually a little bit louder. Let's see. Oh, I'm not too bad at bowling apparently. Alright, that's going to work. Let's turn this off. Okay, now we know that's going to work. Let's see if we can test it on a battery supply. So I'm going to hook a USB lead up to this. So, some time ago, about the same time that Tinkerman Mick was closing his shop, he donated hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these really cheap micro USB leads to me. And yeah, they're really, really great. They are absolutely useless for charging phones, but he told me that, and that's why he was giving them away. They are, however, really handy for making improvised leads for testing stuff. So we are going to firstly move things out of the way, and we're going to strip some ends off this. And then I'm going to rearrange the camera because it's getting a little hard to do stuff. But yeah, really thin conductors in these, but more than enough to carry some current. And you'll notice I'm having some dexterity and control problems, not just because the camera's in the way, but also because of multiple sclerosis yet again is beating my ass. So let's do a couple of things off camera and jump to what that is. Right, so I've removed the battery cells out of this, and we need to rip this apart. Actually isn't too hard to do. So from here, we need to get everything apart. I have a spodger. Also a donation from Tinkerman Mick. We're beginning to share a lot of stuff these days, but I can't say I'm complaining. This actual charger was also one of the little donations from him as well. Now, I want to get this entire board out of here. Here we go. Here's everything out. Right, so now we need to reverse engineer this, and I'm going to decide whether I'm going to use 1, 2, 3 or 4 cells in this. Ideally, because I don't have a spot welder, I'm probably going to have to solder to these. A little uncomfortable about that idea, but yeah, we'll see how we go. Now this, I need to strip some bits off, so let's jump cut and be back to that. Okay, so we've been busy. We've stripped this out and done a bit of work. Now crucially, you'll notice this little lump. Because this is going into valuable little tiny hands, I'm putting a fuse in line with the 18650. I don't really need a breakdown. Decided to use one of these batteries, also to mitigate the fire risk, as I don't need one going into cell reversal and the thing just spontaneously combusting. So I'll put a nice low little fuse like a 1 or a 2 amp or something in there. Nothing in there just yet. We'll put one in shortly and see if it works, but yeah, I'm just going to stick with one cell and I'm going to insulate it very nicely. So let's put a fuse in this thing, and this came out of a piece of field equipment I used a while ago, so I have a hastily repaired fuse. I've done lots of repacking. I do have a big box of these across the room. I'm just lazy and don't want to get out of bed, or at least get off my feet. It is that time of night where unscripted language goes way out the window. Anyway, it reckons that's 67%. This throws weird values at me, but it should work. Anyway, let's see if we can get some voltage out of this. Where did my voltmeter go? It is hiding off camera. It should go in one of these ways. I believe that's right. Okay, so getting 5.2 volts. Not ideal, but it should work just fine. I'll push that on to wake it up. Now, the other thing I want to test is if this thing wakes up with a load on it, namely this thing. Otherwise, I'll have to make a provision for this push button on here. So, yeah, let's rip this apart. We'll shut it down, and we'll see if it fires up just off a load. In fact, that switch doesn't turn it off at all. So we'll just disconnect the fuse. Alright, it's back together. Alright, let's get everything prepped and see if we can connect it direct to the machine. So we have again connected our USB supply to this. I'm just checking that red was for positive and grey was for ground. Now we're going to plug into the supply down here and see if the load of this unit is enough. Simply to switch it on. It is indeed. Okay, so I won't need to make access to the power button. That should just fire up. And I think if we disconnect this, that should turn off after a predetermined amount of time. And that means I can use the original power switch, which will be nice. So I'm going to start getting things wrapped up now and get it packed inside. I might even do something about the speaker grill on here a little bit too. Alright, let's see what we can do. Right, so we're up to the tricky bit. Now, to the observant among you, you'll notice this little hole in the back here, right there. That's designed to line up with a micro USB lead. If I slot that through, it slots through just perfectly. I can't tell you how long that took me to get that right. The reason I'm putting this through here is, oh, and by the way, I've insulated the battery. This is designed to slot straight on here, and I've discovered there is just enough tolerance to get that connection in there and make it a good connection. Indeed, after all that precision work, it doesn't fit. Can we see in the gap here? Nope, there is a clash between the back of the board and that. I'm going to have to undo all that hot glue. There's always got to be one thing. Okay, so the time has come to choose a correct fuse. And for that, I want to know how much this is actually using. So I've got my... oh, actually, I have this wrong. I need to go common, and I need to go through the milliamp mode. Actually, I can leave it like that. I'm in 200 milliamp mode. And so we're going to hook my multimeter across the supply and see how much current this draws. If I can get this contact to present to me in a way that makes sense. Is it going to fire up? Maybe not. We'll find a way to measure this. Alright, so I've got it up and running on the 10 amp shunt. It was obviously too high a resistance on the other one. So looking at about 260 milliamps. Is actually considerably higher than I'd thought. So I'm thinking probably 1 amp fuse on this should deal with any sort of fault current. So I'm going to shut this down now. And I'm not sure how long that 1400 milliamp hour battery is going to run, whether it really is. Although we could do some simple math and probably go around about 6 hours. But that is all really dependent because there's a voltage difference. There's about 3.6 volts bringing up to 5. So Ohm's law, I'm going to make a ballpark figure and say about 2 to 3 hours. And that should probably be more than enough to put on a charge. So yeah, let's get all this buttoned up. I'm getting sick of this, and I'm going to pick a fuse. That's what I've got to do. I'm getting tired. It's nearly midnight. I need to finish this. I'm dipping into a fabled box of fuses. And this box of fuses has a bit of a story. A previous employer of mine, about the time we were selling the business, I did quite a bit of overtime to help him clean up and organise the business. And among some of the payment was this big box of fuses. So where are we? We have 7, 5, 3 something and 1 amp. We've got 1 amp fuses. I don't think we have 1 amp 3AG fuses, although we have 2 amp. That'll certainly blow if we have a short circuit on the battery. So 2 amp and a 3AG should be fine. So let's zoom all the way up here a bit. And we'll turn our switch off. we will insert a fuse. Insert. Oh my. And right, our fuse is in. So if we switch our switch on, our game should fire up. And if we turn it off, after a short period of time, this should shut down. Okay, so we finally got there in the end. And aside from my mistaken hole, you'd probably never know. But I did manage to find a little hidey hole for the circuit in the back here, which if we get our lead just right, it pops in through that hole and we can charge it. And if I plug this into charge off the side of the camera here, you'll probably see that there is a little red display. We can almost sort of figure out what's going on here. I think it says 57%. But also we can unplug that, and if we turn the unit on, as normal, it fires up. And we'll do something more about this stick later. But we can actually play a game, which means my apprentice will be very happy. And it's even a little bit louder, which is probably going to drive us all nuts. I don't know how to play half of these games. No idea how to play them. Anyway, I'm losing, but it works. And if we turn it off, after about a minute, the actual regulator cuts out. So I'm going to leave this charged in a flame-proof place and see if it has a meltdown overnight. But anyway, other than that, that's complete. We'll see you all next time.
So, I put this on the video game. Then